Prabhupada, Paramahamsa, Parivrajacharya, Ashtotara Sutta Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahamsa, Parivrajacharya, Ashtotara Sutta Sri Srimad, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vikasu Swami Nityanamane. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, titled, Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Text number 7. Abhasash Abhasash Cha Nirodhash Cha Yato Asti Adyavasiyate Adyavasiyate Sa Ashrayaha Param Brahma Paramatmeti Shabdyate Abhasascha Nirodhascha Abhasascha Nirodhascha Yatustyadhyavasisyate Siyate. Sorry, Yatustyadhyavasiyate Yatustyadvayasiyate Sa Ashraya Param Brahma Sa Ashraya Param Brahma Paramatmeti Shabdyate Paramatmeti Shabdyate Abhasascha Nirodhascha Yatustyadhyavasiyate Sa Ashraya Param Brahma Paramatmeti Shabdyate Abhasascha Nirodhascha Yatustyadhyavasiyate Sa Ashraya Param Brahma Paramatmeti Shabdyate Abhasascha Nirodhascha Yatustyadhyavasiyate Sa Ashraya Param Brahma Paramatmeti Shabdyate Nirodhascha Abhasaha, the cosmic manifestation. Cha, and. Nirodhaha, and its winding up. Cha, also. Yataha, from the source. Asti, is. Adyavasiyate, become manifested. Saha, he. Ashrayaha, reservoir. Param, the supreme. Brahma, being. Paramatma, the supersoul. Iti, thus. Shabdyate, called. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Supreme One, who is celebrated as the Supreme Being or the Supreme Soul, is the Supreme Source of the cosmic manifestation, as well as its reservoir and winding up. Thus, He is the Supreme Fountainhead, the Absolute Truth. Purport. Synonyms for the Supreme Source of all energies, as explained in the very beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, are Janmaryasya Yataha, Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam Brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate, called Param Brahma, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. The word iti used here in this verse completes the synonyms and thus indicates Bhagavan. This will be further explained in the later verses, but this Bhagavan ultimately means Lord Krishna because the Srimad Bhagavatam has already accepted the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Krishna. Krishna's tus Bhagavan Svayam. The original source of all energies, or the summum bonum, is the Absolute Truth, which is called Parama Brahma. And Bhagavan is the last word of the Absolute Truth. But even with the synonyms for Bhagavan, such as Narayana, Vishnu, and Purusha, the last word is Krishna, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate, etc. Besides that, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the representation of Lord Krishna as a sound incarnation of the Lord. Krishne sva dhammo pagate dharma jnanadibi saha kalo nasta drishamesha puranarko dunoditaha. Thus, by general conclusion, Lord Krishna is the ultimate source of all energies, and the word Krishna means that. And to explain Krishna or the science of Krishna, the Srimad Bhagavatam has been prepared. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, this truth is indicated in the questions and answers by Sutta Goswami and great sages like Shaunaka. And in the first and second chapters of the canto, this is explained. In the third chapter, this subject is more explicit, and in the fourth chapter, even more explicit. In the second canto, the Absolute Truth as the Personality of Godhead is further emphasized, and the indication is the Supreme Lord Krishna. The summary of Srimad Bhagavatam in 4 verses, as we have already discussed, is succinct. This Supreme Personality of Godhead and the ultimate issue is confirmed by Brahma in his Brahma Samhita and as Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. So it is concluded in the third canto. So it is concluded in the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The complete subject matter is elaborately explained in the 10th and 11th cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam. In the matter of the changes of the Manus or Manvantaras, such as Swayambhuva Manvantara and Chakshusha Manvantara, as they are discussed in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Krishna is indicated. In the 8th canto, the Vaivasvata Manvantara explains the same subject indirectly, and in the 9th canto the same purport is there. In the 12th canto the same is further explained, specifically regarding the different incarnations of the Lord. Thus it is concluded by studying the complete Srimad Bhagavatam that Lord Sri Krishna is the ultimate summum bonum, or the ultimate source of all energy. And according to the grades of worshippers, the indications of the nomenclature may be differently explained as Narayana, Brahma, Paramatma, etc. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshru Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Pishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utaf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahiktam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Cha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tribhyascha Kripasandubi Evichapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivikasa Swaminiti Namane Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vagisha Yasya Vadane Lakshmi Yasya Javaksisi Yasyaste Hridaye Samvitam Nasimha Mahamaje Yasya Devi Parabhaktir Yata Devi Tatagaro Tasyate Katita Hyarta Prakashante Mahatmanaha Abhasascha Nirodhascha Yatostyad Adyavasiyate Sa Ashraya Param Brahma Paramadmeti Shabdyate. The Supreme One, who is celebrated as the Supreme Being or the Supreme Soul, is the supreme source of the cosmic manifestation, as well as its reservoir and winding up. Thus, he is the supreme fountainhead, the absolute truth. So, continuing on in this chapter, and this verse specifically is hammering on this word supreme, as you can tell. It says it 5 times in this translation. So, it's emphasizing the supremacy of Krishna, and this is one of the main topics of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's repeated over and over and over again in so many different ways, and it's displayed in so many different ways. We see Krishna's different pastimes that could only be showcased by one who is supreme. We see Lord Brahma meditating and taking instruction from Krishna in the form of this instruction of tapa, and ultimately getting the power from him to do the secondary creation and create all the bodies of all the living entities and all the planets and such in this material world. So one thing I was just contemplating on this, that we experience in the Bhakta program, when you're preaching to new people, that they come in and maybe they have some questions or doubts, you could say, about, how do you know Krishna is supreme? How to understand this? I've been told this other person is supreme, whatever. Maybe they're from a Christian background, they think Jesus is supreme, or they're more from a, coming from more of an atheistic standpoint, or believing that science has the answers and we have to approach things scientifically. So this idea of having faith and just believing blindly that someone named Krishna is supreme doesn't seem so attractive to a lot of new people. At least that was how I was, coming from a Christian background, that you're told just to believe this, have faith in this and don't question things. But anybody that comes here and experiences it for some time can understand that asking questions is greatly emphasized and encouraged, and really trying to find any flaws in the philosophy is welcomed, because as we know by studying it for years, there are no flaws in it, and you only continue to strengthen your faith by questioning and asking different questions with the right attitude, of course. So, and this is kind of what we encourage, because we don't want people to come and blindly follow. That's not actually a good thing, because as you see, again, I'm not going to try not to pick at Christianity this whole class, but for example, they go out and we meet them on the street so many times, and they're quite fanatical. They can be quite emphatic that Jesus is supreme, he's God, and this and that, but they don't have any philosophical basis to back it up. They don't even have the most basic understanding of what is spirit and what is matter. So how can they possibly understand who is supreme? So when you come to us, again, you could compare it and say, well, what makes us different from Christianity, where we're just saying to believe this person is supreme, not Jesus, it's Krishna. And the answer is that, these literatures that we're reading, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and all the Vedic literatures, are not originated from a flawed, conditioned mind, conditioned soul. This Bhagavad Gita 15:15, you can pull this up, is aham sarvasya, sarvasya chaham hridi sanivishto, matasmritir ganam apohanam cha, vedascha sarvair aham eva vedyo, vedanta krid vedavid eva chaham. Translation: I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Anyways, it's okay. I already read it. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. So here Krishna is saying specifically, I am the compiler of this Vedanta. So again, this knowledge is perfect. It comes from a perfect source, and it is perfect, untainted by material nature, uncontaminated. Whereas all the other, again, just taking other popular religious practices, their scripture is influenced by the modes of material nature because it's written down by humans. And it says throughout the Vedic literature so many different times, as we'll go over, and it's, Prabhupada is referencing so many different times in the Bhagavatam specifically that it's confirmed that Krishna is supreme. And this is, again, this is from the Vedic literature, which is uncontaminated, and it's written by Krishna himself. He's saying the Vedas come from me. And I was looking at this a little bit, this book by Gokul Chandra Prabhu, Who is Supreme. And I just wanted to read one little bit out of it. Let me see. It's right at the very beginning. Just talking about this idea of, well, how do you know to take the authority from the Vedic literature? How do you know to trust this? And it says so many different times there that, similar to this Bhagavad Gita shloka we just read, that Krishna is the one that originated, the Vedas originate from Krishna. He says in here, let me see, one second. Yeah. So a discussion based simply on opinions or beliefs cannot bring a proper conclusion. As conveyed by the proverb, millions of people, millions of opinions. Therefore, to understand any matter, one requires reliable evidence. But what is conclusive evidence for the existence of God or demigods? Can we see their forms with our eyes? No. But yet, how much can we see with our eyes? We cannot even see our eyelids, the nearest objects to the eyes. What to speak of seeing and understanding the absolute truth, who is far beyond material sense perception. And he goes on to say that the next tool for inquiring about God is logic. So, we might see a painting and conclude that an artist obviously created it, but we're not going to be able to know anything about the artist themselves just by their painting. We don't know what they look like, what they like and don't like. So the way that we can do that is we approach someone that does know the artist and ask them to introduce us. And so that's one point. And another point I wanted to read here is, there's this quote from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Asya mahato bhutasya nishvasatim etadyad rigvedo yajurveda samavedo tarvan girasa itihasa puranam vidya upanishadas shlokas sutrani anuvyakyanani asyai vatani sarvani nishvasitani. The Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda, the Itihasas, histories, the Puranas, the Upanishads, the shlokas or mantras chanted by Brahmanas, the sutras, condensed Vedic statements, as well as Vidya, transcendental knowledge, and the explanations of the sutras and mantras are all emanations from the breathing of the great personality of Godhead. So, and then this goes on, this is kind of the introduction. He says, this discussion of who is supreme will be based on Vedic authority and not the opinions of ordinary men, whose knowledge is always imperfect due to the four inherent defects of all humans. That's why I wanted to share from that. So we can understand that these literatures are perfect, and they're actually emanations from the breathing of the Supreme Lord. So the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, all the Vedic literature, and all the realized sages, saints, and acharyas, they all concur that Krishna is supreme. But yet people continue to doubt. So we'll go into that a little bit. I wanted to go over some of these references that Prabhupada gave in the purport, because there's so many, but just some more examples just to really hammer this point home that the Bhagavatam continuously confirms over and over again that Krishna is supreme. So Bhagavatam 1.1.1 says, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmari Yato Nvaya Aditaratas Chartesh Abhignaha Svarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye Muhyanti Yat Suryaha. And then in the translation is saying that I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, all-pervading personality of Godhead. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. So this is also echoing the purport through the translation today. The Supreme Soul is the supreme source of the cosmic manifestation as well as its reservoir and winding up. So this is a very important aspect of the supremacy of Krishna, is that he is there before the material creation, and he is the cause of the creation of the material creation, the sustenance, and the winding up of it. Even though we of course learn that, Brahma does the secondary creation, so some could mistake that he's, also supreme or maybe more supreme or whatever. And then Lord Shiva is in charge of the destruction. But you simply see in the Bhagavatam that both of those personalities, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, are also great devotees of Krishna. So they recognize the supremacy of Vishnu, Krishna, and recognize that their power is coming from him. So, we can learn from them in that way that they're not supreme. And then, of course, moving on in the purport, another thing that Prabhupada references is Bhagavatam 1-11. Vedanti tattva vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam. And he's saying that learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. In the purport he says, the absolute truth is both subject and object, and there's no qualitative difference there. Therefore, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are qualitatively one and the same. The same substance is realized as impersonal Brahman by the students of the Upanishads, as localized Paramatma by the Hiranyagarbhas or the yogis, and as Bhagavan by the devotees. In other words, Bhagavan, or the personality of Godhead, is the last word of the absolute truth. So this is, again, emphasizing the same point over and over again, and like I said, it's kind of just going to continue re-emphasizing this throughout all of these different examples. But he's saying here that there's no qualitative difference. This is an important distinction to make, that it's not that, this non-dual substance, that everything is the same. This is the common fallacy of the Mayavadis, that they think, it's all actually one. But it's very clearly stated in the purport here that they're qualitatively one and the same, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. But quantitatively, we know that the spirit soul is referred to elsewhere as Brahman, but Krishna is Parabrahman, the supreme Brahman, the supreme soul, and we are simply part and parcels of him, and therefore we are not supreme, he is supreme. Only one of us can be, as the analogy goes, that if everybody was the president, nobody would be the president. You can only have one. Otherwise, the entire definition of president is moot. It's no longer valid. Another verse, continuing on, mentioned in the purport 1.3.28. Ete chamsa kalapumsa Krishnas tu Bhagavan Swayam. So this Krishnas tu Bhagavan Swayam, that all the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord, but Lord Shri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. So this is after, in the Bhagavatam, this Canto 1, Chapter 3, it's being described all the different incarnations of Krishna that come and what they do. And it's once that's all explained, this comes right after that, and it says, these are all portions of the plenary portions of the Lord, expansions of the Lord, but Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. So this is again being emphasized here. Krishna is supreme. And let's see, moving on. I mean, I have so many examples, of course. But, we'll kind of get to some more of those later. I just wanted to kind of go back to this idea that some people continue to doubt. And, there's so many reasons why people don't decide to surrender to Krishna or have doubts in their devotional service and such. One is that, they're wanting to have that because we're in this material world for a reason, and that's because we've decided to rebel against Krishna. And even though they may read the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, chant Hare Krishna, practice devotional service and such, if they're still determined to remain doubtful, they won't be able to make much progress, and they won't be able to develop that faith that leads to realization and ultimately strengthening your faith. So you have to start the process of devotional service with at least a little bit of faith. You have faith that, as I've heard before, that like you meet the devotees and you have, at least at first, you might not have faith that, okay, Krishna is God. You don't really understand any of that. You don't really know why you're chanting this mantra. It doesn't really make much sense to you. It just sounds like some sounds. Maybe you're getting a little bit of, taste for it, but very, very base level. But what you do have faith in is that the devotees are nice people. They feed you nicely, and they're very loving people. They seem to be very blissful. I know that's one thing I immediately noticed when I came here. These people are way different than the people outside that I've met before. Their faces look different. They're effulgent, and they look very peaceful and happy. And so I wanted to know what it was about, because materially speaking, we don't have so much opulence as the karmis that have so much money and these big houses and mansions and nice cars and stuff. Most of us probably don't have a bank account or don't really have any money to our name. We don't have our own personal nice cars. We don't have a nice house to live in, but because we're under the shelter of Krishna, we get to use these facilities in his service. And as it said, the servant enjoys on the level of the master. So because Krishna has this nice facilities, we get to also have these nice facilities to use, but they're not ours. But so, you come here and you see the devotees, you see they're very nice people. They don't have much, materially speaking, but they seem very happy. So what is the secret? What are they doing? What is making them so happy? So this level of faith starts to develop in that way. And then as you continue on, you begin chanting and engaging in the process of devotional service, and you can immediately start feeling some difference, some benefits. And you see that these material desires are being cleaned out of the heart, the Chaito Darpana Marjanam, this holy name, and these engaging in the service of the devotees and of the Lord. It cleanses the heart of these material desires, and this is how we ultimately find happiness and peace. We're not being completely afflicted by these material desires as we were in the material world before. We were so afflicted we didn't even realize how much we were suffering until we come here and take a breath of fresh air. It's like we were drowning, and then we finally came up for air and realized we were drowning. But the point is, so you develop a little bit of faith, and then as you continue on, you are reading the books and you're chanting, and you're asking your questions, like I mentioned at the beginning of the class. You're getting your doubts dispelled. So this is a very important aspect of coming into Krishna consciousness, is asking all of your questions, not hiding if you're feeling doubts and not feeling ashamed about it, but just openly asking about your doubts. And then once you get defeated in your argument and you realize, okay, well, this actually makes much more sense logically, because like I said, the philosophy is very bulletproof. You ask any question you have and we'll have an answer for it. And you can point to Shastra in so many different places and explain, exactly why we're here in this material world, how to get out of it, what our relationship with Krishna is, who we are, and how to find ultimate fulfillment and happiness in life. So once you start getting those doubts dispelled, the important thing to do is to accept when you've been defeated and surrender to that, and not continue to have these doubts continue arising. And if they come back up, you just remember, well, this, and I got defeated in this way, and I learned this about the philosophy, and that completely dispelled this one doubt. So we shouldn't have these doubts coming back up over and over and over again, because this is just, ultimately, this is a symptom of something deeper. It's not actually that we're necessarily doubting the legitimacy of the philosophy, but we're getting into this mentality of trying to find fault in the philosophy, and not in a submissive way, which is required, but in a way that you want to find fault so that you can have some excuse not to follow. And again, this is much different from like Christianity, where it's like, don't ask questions, don't have doubts. But the fact is, you can have those things, but you also have to be sincere in that. Recognize that if you are being defeated in your philosophy and your whatever mistakes or misconceptions you have in your own ideas of your own philosophy, you have to accept the fact that you were defeated and take the higher thing, accept the higher philosophy as truth, and continue and begin to follow that. There's also this Yasya Devi Para Bhaktir Yata Tevi Tatagaro Tasya Te Katita Hyarta Prakashante Mahatmanaha, that for one who has implicit faith in both the Guru and Krishna, all of the imports of the Vedic knowledge are automatically revealed to them. So it's not that you have to come in and have some PhD in Vedic literature or Sanskrit studies and do a bunch of just book learning, dry book learning, and think that intellectually wrapping your mind around these books and this philosophy will solve your doubts. What's required is that you come in and you surrender unto a spiritual master, unto a bona fide spiritual master, and render service unto them. And through pleasing them and through strengthening your faith in them, all of these imports, all of the conclusions of the Vedic knowledge will be revealed to you. So it's not that you have to be some genius to do this. You can just be someone washing pots in the kitchen all day, every day, and not know much about the philosophy, not be able to preach, just be chanting Hare Krishna, having faith in your Guru, and trying your best to understand, to learn, and all of the conclusions will be revealed to you. There's this story, I believe it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, of the I don't know who he was, but some guy that was reading the Bhagavad Gita upside down, and people would laugh at him and make fun of him. But Lord Chaitanya went up to him, right? Lord Chaitanya went up to him, and he saw that this man was crying because his guru had ordered him to read the Bhagavad Gita every day, but he didn't. He was illiterate. He didn't know how to read, but he was experiencing the topmost levels of love of God because he was following the order of his spiritual master, and he had faith in the order of his spiritual master. So this will become revealed to us as we develop more and more faith and understanding. There's so many other examples. Let me just pull up some other ones. I actually have a couple more things to say about this. So, you have to, ultimately, the thing is you have to accept some authority. You can either accept the authority of the Vedic literature and the scriptures and of the realized devotees. You can accept that they have, the answers, or you can accept the scientists or, the Mayavadis or whatever. But ultimately you're accepting some authority. Even if you say, well, science is logical and it's based on, evidence and these kinds of things, there's this idea that, well, have you seen an atom? Have you seen, a star that's whatever billions of light years away, and all these things and all these galaxies? They say that everything is this certain way, and that everything came from nothing. Have you seen that? There's so many different things that scientists just kind of imagine in their head that's how things are. They just speculate and come up with conclusions based on what their senses are telling them. But as we discussed before, the senses are imperfect and lead to imperfect conclusions. So if you're basing everything on that, you're going to be led down the wrong path. So ultimately, you have to accept some authority. Either it's scientists or your own mind, your own mental speculations that are just complete nonsense. But we see so much, everybody comes in and they have their own ideas. So many people come in and have, they follow different practices, or they just think that they take something from each different tradition that they like and make their own mishmash spirituality that's not anything. And the ultimate conclusion of that is that they're taking their mind to be the authority, and they're surrendering unto their own mind and their own mental speculations, which are flawed, as we just said, with the flaws of the senses. There's these so there's also, I was talking to Charandeep about this yesterday. He went to this really nice school, IIT. I don't remember what city it was in, but there's all these different IITs in India, and they're like the MIT, they're like the top, technology institute of India. And we found out, he was telling me that at his school, they had this slogan that they wrote all over the campus, like IIT, and then they would say, this Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam, which means, this is Bhagavad Gita 250, the whole entire shloka is Buddhi Yukto Jahatiha Ube Sukrita Duskrite Tasmad Yogaya Yujyasva Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. Translation is that a man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions even in this life. Therefore strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. But what they do is they take that last line, Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam, and they say, it says here in the translation that Prabhupada wrote, therefore strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. But they say that work is yoga. The art of work is yoga. So they're saying basically that you work like a hog and a dog, and you're engaging in yoga. You're doing the right thing. And then I heard it. I was listening to my Guru Maharaj last night, and he mentioned another one. There was IIT Chennai, and I can't remember what their slogan was, but it was like the same kind of thing. It was like they take one line from the Bhagavad Gita like that as part of a shloka, and they twist it. It was very much the same kind of message, that engaging in work is the way to perfection. There's something about karma, and of course in the Bhagavad Gita is talking about karma yoga, not just mundane work. But these people twist these things and come up with all these ideas that, okay, well, just working like a hog and a dog, that's supreme. So it takes submitting to the right authority and understanding from the right person to understand the message of the Shastra. And that's why it's so important to surrender to a spiritual master. Because if you just take a few words out of the Bhagavad Gita, you can twist it to mean whatever you like. And this is what the Mayavadis do. They, take one line out of the whole Bhagavad Gita and ignore the fact that Krishna is speaking to Arjuna the whole time. It's a very personal conversation, and Krishna keeps saying, I am supreme, me surrender unto me, me and you have always existed, and all these warriors, we've always been and we always will be. All these examples of the individuality of the soul and the supremacy of Krishna. And they take one tiny little part of the Bhagavad Gita and then twist the meaning of that and try to turn it into this, actually, it's just the unborn within Krishna that you should surrender to, and all these nonsense things. There's so many people that are very materially intelligent, but they still refuse to surrender to Krishna. So why is this? It's spoken of in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 20, that these people's knowledge is stolen by illusion. So it's kamais taistair hritakjnana prapadyante nyadevataha tam niyamam astaya prakritya niyata svaya. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto the demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. So it's people that have too many material desires, they aren't able to recognize the supremacy of Krishna and surrender to him. So this is a very dangerous thing that we should be cautious of, and realize that if we're cultivating material desires, we can quickly fall down from the platform of devotional service and become completely bewildered by the material energy. There's so many, again, it's in India, it seems that the common thing is that people are generally Krishna conscious. They know who Krishna is. I was listening to my Guru Maharaj, he said even the Muslims know Krishna. Prabhupada said that, actually. He was quoting Prabhupada. Even the Muslims are Krishna conscious there. Not that they're favorable to Krishna, but they know, at least they know about Krishna, whereas here in the West, it's quite rare. We had that video that Mahotsa posted of that Asian man that came and he was like, "Is this about Krishna?" And they were so it's always a very exciting thing when you're on books and someone knows like Krishna, or like they've heard of Krishna. It's a very rare thing. Whereas in India, everybody knows Krishna, of course. But what the problem comes when they don't recognize the supremacy of Krishna. And this is a very important point, that they have to, they think that Krishna is just another god, and you have your Ishta Devata and I have mine, and I worship this particular god because I like it more, and I also have this Sai Baba on my altar, and these bogus incarnations that are very ugly and not beautiful like Krishna, and so it's all mixed up, and they're not recognizing the supremacy of Krishna, and therefore they're not able to make advancement on this path, and they that's like this is describing their intelligence has been stolen by illusion. And it's so many very intelligent people in India, especially, that they come over, they study at these IIT, like Trandeep is saying, that it's so competitive there. I mean, there's so many more people there than here, and they're very intelligent, and then they study this computer science or whatever, and so intensely, and they are very, very well versed materially, and they so much of the American IT industry is completely filled with Indian people, because they're actually a lot, generally, like, just more intelligent in that way. They work a lot harder at it, and they have more material intelligence. But despite knowing about Krishna and knowing that the Bhagavad Gita, they should read Bhagavad Gita, you should worship Krishna, they have all these material desires to come to America and have these nice things, and they see that, actually the Americans are the ones that have things right. India, we should be more like America. So there's this mentality that's really leading to the degradation of society, and it should actually be flipped around, and we should be learning from this traditional Indian life, and the spiritual, simple life where you're living off the land and you're engaging in devotional service, centering your life around Krishna, and the temple is the most opulent and beautiful building, not the skyscrapers and the malls and the places for sense gratification and material enjoyment. There's this quote that you can learn a lot about a civilization by the biggest buildings that are there. You see, like, they're sending pictures of Mayapur, all the devotees that are there, and you can see, like, the TOVP is so amazing, like breathtaking. It's like this huge temple, and there's no skyscrapers there. There's no like huge like industry or materialistic, kind of like buildings, I guess you could say. Like it's very, it's just like simple buildings and then that huge temple. So it's like, Krishna is the center of attention there, of course. And even then I was actually making videos, and I like part of that is like go like find old photos to put in the video and like just like random stuff. And I found like this, the first color photos that were taken, basically it was like in Russia, like 100 years ago, a little over 100 years ago. And it was like right before the Industrial Revolution. It's like before like factories and all these things, or like right when I was starting. But there's so many photos of these villages, and you can see even there, like it's the same thing where there would be like, just like humble houses, just like made with wood and like whatever straw and stuff. And then there'd be a huge, very opulent church in the center of the town, and it looked like completely, it completely stood out, and it was very beautiful. So this simple lifestyle is very important to head back to. I kind of got off track a little bit there. But yeah, another one thing I wanted to mention was that I've heard, my Guru Maharaj say this, that when he first came to Krishna consciousness, I don't know if it was him that thought this or someone other devotee that he was remembering about this idea of, I think it's another devotee, but he just quotes it, and he says that this devotee, when they first came to Krishna consciousness, they had heard all these different things, all these just like vague philosophies and this and that and wishy-washy, and you are this, the oneness and awareness and consciousness, and everything is, the chakras and all these things. And he came to Krishna consciousness, and he heard Prabhupada say, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he said, that's the most logical thing I've ever heard in my life. So, it's a very simple philosophy. Krishna is supreme. It's backed up so many different times in all the Vedic literatures. Krishna himself is saying it so many times. All the devotees are saying it. All the acharyas come and say that. And they tell us how to worship him and how to get free of this material existence. Krishna is the only one that can take us out of the material existence, because he's the only one that's not in it. I guess you could say, like, even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are within the material manifestation, whereas Krishna is always aloof from it. Even when he incarnates, he never touches the material energy, it's said. So yeah, there's infinite different proofs you could go on and explanations as to why Krishna is supreme, and we could talk about it for days and days, but I just wanted to kind of go over that really quickly, and didn't have so much to say about it. If anybody has any questions or comments, please let me know. Corrections.
Hare Krishna. So just two comments. So one thing is that the devotee that you were talking about, that the Guru Maharaj was talking about, that's Umapati Swami.
Who is it?
Umapati Swami.
Umapati.
Yeah, he tells in his memories with Srila Prabhupada that like he heard like some Buddhism, and they were saying that the absolute truth, you can't say what it is, you can't say what it is and isn't. You can't say what it is, and you can't say what it isn't. And then he was just like that, and then Prabhupada said that, and then he's like, oh, that's like the most logical thing I've heard.
Yeah.
He was word jugglerly. But I just had like a comment on the purport. I mean, it's really amazing actually that the last paragraph, like Srila Prabhupada kind of like breaks down the Bhagavatam, and like explains, like this canto is kind of like, pretty much that it's like how it's explaining like Krishna consciousness. And there's a lot that could be said about that, but I thought it was interesting. Let me see. There's two things. Well, one thing I thought was interesting. Well, the main thing is, let me see here exactly. So he makes the point that. So he quotes the Brahma Samhitas, Ishvara Parama Krishna, and then he says it's concluded in the third canto, and then he makes the point that it's discussed elaborately in the 10th canto and 11th canto, and so generally like the 10th canto is like we understand that that's like the essence of Bhagavatam and things, the Sunam Bonum, and all of that. But Prabhupada in this purport is placing emphasis on the 11th canto also, that is elaborately explained. So he's giving emphasis, both to the 10th and the 11th. Because generally sometimes it's like, just because Prabhupada didn't translate, I mean, even the 10th canto, most of it, but part of the 10th, most of the 10th, 11th, and 12th, it's like, we don't like, for some reason, like, we don't like accept that as like pranams and like pramanam, and devotees don't study that, but as so much. But actually this 11th and 12th cantos are very important, and Prabhupada in this purport is giving a lot of emphasis almost like equally to 10th and 11th. And if you look at the 11th canto also, I mean, so many verses that we quote, that Prabhupada would quote are from there. This one, how does that start? I can't remember, but explaining that like when the living entity, he identifies with the material nature, like fear arises, and this labdash mibam, and then most of that 10th or 11th canto is discussions between like Uddhava and Krishna, and then also the beginning of that is Maharaj Nimi with the discussions of the Navi-Yogendras. So I'm just making the point that the 11th canto, Srila Prabhupada making the point in this purport that it's really important actually, and there's a lot of like important philosophy and like Siddhanta discussed in the 11th and the 12th canto. So and devotees don't really like know those cantos so much actually, at least within ISKCON it seems like.
Yeah. Wow.
So
That's a good point. Yeah, I didn't even get into speaking of like the 10th canto, like, there's so many examples in there that Krishna is supreme. Like, just from like his appearance, that all the demigods like went to, and asked Vishnu, please come and like help us, save us, and it's overrun by demoniac influence, and so they're praying to Vishnu to come. So that's one indication that he's supreme, because all the demigods were praying to him, and then all the pastime like Putana, like a little baby kills a giant demon, and like he's killing all these demons, doing all these things, and the universe is appearing within his mouth. So many indications that he's supreme within just his pastimes. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasinubhyavcha Titanam Pavani